Hi, my name is Dustin. I'm autistic. I'm 39 years old, and I share every week a story out of my life. And I live independently. I've been doing so for 6 years. I've had a part-time job for nearly 15 years, and here's just a glimpse of my story. Stay tuned. Greetings, bloggers, vloggers, followers, and potters. Dustin here from Dustin's Dynasty here at you today with a new vlog. It's Friday, it's the week before Christmas. So, when I was thinking about what to do this weekend before Christmas, this time of year, and many times of the year, there are struggles with sensory overwhelm and sensory overload that it can be just too much for autistic people such as myself to handle. So, how do we as autistic people cope with our sensory challenges? And, it's different from person to person, but for me, it's a variation of things. And this time of year is one of the hardest for me. It always has been, not just with the overwhelm of things. There is more things out there that can be overwhelming. The music is different, the lights, the sounds, they're all different. They're different, and there's even smells that are different, and it can be hard to withstand as an autistic human being because they're different, they're unique. They can be overpowering or overwhelming to a person, and without considering, others when it comes to that, it can be very challenging, and it can cause things to be a little overwhelming for us as autistic people. We may not be able to withstand things as long as our neurotypical peers. We may have to step off to a separate room in order to regroup our thoughts and calm down from what we've been experiencing. And that too can be a challenge. Needless to say, this whole season is a challenge because there's a lot of changes to the schedule. Even though we are well notified well in advance of them, they are changes. They're not what we normally expect. They throw our routines off. It can be hard. Um, things aren't operating as normal. There's a lot more downtime. All of these things can be overwhelming, and it's just a little too much. And, it's important to take a little more extra care of yourself during the holidays. I've been working at practicing a little more self-care because I've been asked, what do I do for self-care? And I'm slowly figuring that out. It's a process. Everybody has to find what their process is. Even saying no to something is a form of self-care. And, there's a lot of things sometimes as people we're expected to do so many obligations during the holiday season, but sometimes there is too much for one thing or too much for another thing. So you have to pick and choose what you want to do in your holiday schedule. Make that holiday schedule out. Know what to expect if you can. Know what there is to be known. There's some things that, you have to do because, well, they're family obligations. And being able, but what is most important is being able to be you authentically and cope with the challenges that come into the path. This year I went to my niece's holiday course concert, and that was a big step for me because even though I did it in the spring, that was the first time ever. And she's in her final year of middle school. Um, you know, to do the holiday concert too was a challenge. But I went through it and I did it because it's important for a family to do those things. It's important to take the time. And as challenging as they can be for autistic adults such as myself, there will always be plenty of time to unwind in the future. And if you need to take that extra day to unwind, it's perfectly acceptable. And there are going to be some things that, you're just going to have to say no to. And that too is perfectly acceptable. But there are things that you are going to want to do and should do and are sort of obligated to do. And when you do them, you feel good because you've done them. Sometimes our anxiety drives us a little haywire and makes us think we can't do this thing or that thing, or this thing's going to be too bad, or, it's going to ha cause a problem or whatever. And I've had those situations happen to me where I didn't want to go to some holiday events because I felt that maybe it was going to be too overwhelming, or that things were going to be out of control, or that I would make false accusations about things without realizing that I would be perfectly fine in the element that I was in, without realizing that my parents were going to be just there and I was going to be fine. And eventually I overcame those things. And even though there was people that helped me along the path of those things, um, it was something that I had to do. Another thing is challenging this time of year is going to the stores, because the stores are overwhelming. And, some do have sensory hours, and I'm overly grateful for that. But there, in this time of the world, I don't have time. This week has been so busy that I wasn't able to go during sensory hours. So I had to literally bite the bullet and go and do. And even though it was challenging, sometimes, you have to take a break and take care of business and, do what you need to do, and maybe you'll feel better, but you're not going to feel better until you express what those feelings are, or express that need to do it. And for me, that was a big step too this week. I had to say that I had to take a break and use the restroom, and because I knew I had to. And it was very important that I did, and I did. And I'm glad I did that because, it made me feel better. But sometimes that anxiety gets to us, and there's a lot of noises in the store. There's a lot more people. There's a lot of different food and different things that we're not used to, and it can be a bit overwhelming and a bit challenging. We may not see the whole circumstance behind the picture, but it is overwhelming. It is challenging. When we go to people's houses for events, it can be overwhelming. It can be challenging. It is important, I always feel, to have a little space that you can go to break away from the situation if you need to. It may not always work. It may not always be the best, and sometimes it may just not work any longer. But you'll know when you have your limit and when it is too much. It can be hard to understand that and find that happy medium to where you need to be. Christmas has always been one of the most overwhelming holidays for me. Now that I moved out on my own and I've been on my own for 6 years, it's getting easier and easier. And now that I'm really in a good state with my mental health, I think it's going to even be better because, all those years I didn't take care of my mental health, I was really on a different planet of sorts and not really myself. But now that I'm in a good light and I'm in a good place, there's a difference about it, and it's about feeling better and doing what is right, even though it may not seem to be right, because you have to take care of yourself. Um, Taking care of myself is important so that I can be able to go and interact with others, um, that I need to be around, and in situations that are, again, overwhelming and challenging for me. And if something as simple as taking medication can help that. Now, granted, it's not for everyone, but for me, is what I needed to do. And it took a long time for me to come to terms with that. But ultimately, it's what's helping me, and it's what making me a better person. And this week, I've had a great slew of holiday celebrations. Yes, I'm ready for a little break. It's been a busy week, and I did take a day for self-care yesterday and got stuff in order here, got some finishing things done that I needed to do. And, overall, I feel pretty well, and I feel like I'm in a good spot right now. And to say that is definitely an understatement this holiday season, because this 2024 has been overwhelming for me. But ultimately, I have been through it. As I said, things have gotten better since I moved out on my own. When I was living with my family, it was a struggle. It was indeed, there was a lot of expectations. Um, there was a lot of things that, we as humans were expected to do. I was expected to sometimes go to church, or sometimes go and spend time with a lot of family members that I would only see so many times a year. And that would be too much, I think. And I just don't think I knew how to cope with that properly. And the last few years, I have not done that because I had to come to the terms. Well, we had COVID, and then we realized that we had to come to terms. I had to come to terms with that it's too much for me, and that's one holiday obligation that I had to say no to. It's not that, it's something I know, something that would have been valued, and maybe in the future I can revisit that. But it's not happening this year. But part of it is, learning how to say no to things, and how is that a part of self-care? That's my part of self-care. But now that I'm on my own, I have my own traditions and my own way of doing things, and just my own rhythm. And even though that may look different from where I see it today, things could always be different. Things can always change. That's one thing I've learned about 2024 is that it can change in a matter of an instant or seconds. And it is challenging to accept. But overall, I've learned that taking care of my mental health is always important. But back to this Christmases, growing up, there was always these obligations, and then you're overstimulated. It's hard to calm down and be regulated. And it would be hard for me Christmas Eve into Christmas Day. I always struggled with that growing up. And, now that I'm on my own, that isn't too much of a struggle. And it's more easier because I allow it to be easier. Over time, once I got the care that I needed, it became easier to get through. Even though it had some bumps in the beginning, it did get easier to get through those struggles that I was experiencing in the past. And Christmas has become much easier. But you have to do your investigative work. You have to do your detective work to see what is a problem, what are barriers, what works good for you at Christmas, what makes it successful. And some many things have changed over the years. Nothing is ever the same, and as you get older, it really doesn't. And that's it's a real scary paradigm. You don't realize it until, it's too late. And for me, this year I have to learn that even though some things are not wanted to be done, you have to take the time for them because you're never promised tomorrow. And even though what I may have to experience may be challenging for me as an autistic person, it's important for me to cope in my own way, in my ways that I need to. And for the most part, those who have been through it with me all these years know that I need that ability to cope, and I need that when I need space, I get my space, and when I need to go for a walk, I need to go for a walk, and there's nothing wrong with that. And any kind of coping mechanism that an autistic person needs should never be discounted. Never, it should be valued for what it is, as long as it's healthy and it's safe. It doesn't have to make sense to anyone, but as long as it's safe and appropriate, then it has to work for you. And it's important, like I said, to make that room in that space at that gathering, for them because they may need that time to decompress. They may need well, I remember growing up, we had big crowds and big tables, and we went from how family member to family member to family member's house. And that sometimes was too much until we had to break it down, and do it different days. And eventually it got better, and I got used to how things were probably because I didn't have a diagnosis at the time. So we were just led to believe to do things. And that's what we call autistic masking today. when we do things and we just put up with it because we put a front on ourselves and we make ourselves look as neurotypical because that's what we're told to do. There was various school assemblies, school events, and you just did them because that was what was expected of you. And when you came home, you just decompressed in the way that you did. And sometimes I didn't always have the time to do that, and it wasn't always the most wasn't the best way sometimes that I handled myself. And sometimes even family and support people didn't understand. But eventually they did, and eventually now they're learning more every day. And that I have to be grateful for. So if you're getting into the next holiday week, just remember to breathe and take your time, and that you don't have to do everything that's on the list. You don't have to follow everything that's on the list. You can say no to something if it's okay. But we're almost there. We got about 4 more days to Christmas. And if take care of yourself. That's the most important thing. If you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe to this video. Um, if you haven't already, be sure to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, X, and Pinterest. That handle is Dustin's Dynasty. I'm on the web. That address is www.dustinsdynastyusa.com. And lastly, I'm on the web. I'm on the link tree. That handle is Dustin's Dynasty. Again, I want to thank you for listening. Be sure to have a good week, everyone. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe out there. And if we don't see you before the holidays, y'all have a nice holiday. We'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.